Hello and welcome back to the Rawkode Academy. I'm your host David Flanagan, also known as Rawkode. This is Rawkode Live. I just like saying Rawkode as many times as I can in the first 10 seconds. And I also hate myself a little bit for it. Now, moving on with today's session, we are taking a look at a CNCF sandbox project. This is SchemaHero. SchemaHero is going to make all of our database migration lives a whole lot easier. And I am not going to show you it. Well, I am kind of, but we are joined by a wonderful guest, a maintainer of the project, Mark Campbell, who is going to keep us up to date on all things SchemaHero. How's it going, Mark? How are you?
It's great. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
yeah, it's awesome. I've been looking at this project for a while, and I'm really keen to kind of play with it and just see how it can simplify my life a little bit. I think I've had the worst luck with databases throughout my entire career, so I'm really looking for just the secret weapon to making my life a little bit easier. Is that what we're going to get today?
Hopefully that was like our goal. I think, I don't know, maybe you've had the second worst luck with databases. We had such bad luck, we created a whole project around it to make it easier.
Well, yeah. Okay, before we get back into SchemaHero and start showing people what this thing can do, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. I'm Mark Campbell, co-founder and CTO of Replicated. At Replicated, we're helping software vendors ship enterprise versions behind the firewall installable products, versions of their product to their enterprise customers. As we focus on Kubernetes, so you take a Kubernetes app, package it up as a Kubernetes app, a Helm chart, whatever, like in Replicated can help you deliver that to air-gapped environments and complex environments. And as part of that, we ran into a lot of different problems that you don't run into when you deliver first-party software, when you're trying to either deliver third-party software or consume third-party software. Database migrations were part of it. We created SchemaHero and put it in the CNCF sandbox, and excited to dig into it a little bit more today.
Yeah, it's a bold name, right? SchemaHero. Like I'm expecting some really big things from this. So.
Yeah, it'll deliver.
Maybe we could talk about a little bit of the history of the project. You said I said I had the worst luck. You said no, you probably had the worst luck because you built a project. Like, why are database migrations so difficult to get right?
Yeah, so we started off really focused on the schema part of database migrations. We're using Goose to run them. If you're familiar, it's like writing Go code, and so we would write SQL migrations often using Go, and it generally worked pretty well. But it was like imperative, where we would say, I want you to go, you'd write a SQL migration that said, go add a column, drop a column, create a table. And the challenge that we really had was kind of came around to, you have to be really, really confident in the current state of that database schema before you can apply changes to it. Which generally sounds, like an okay thing, right? Like I have my database, I can go look at the schema, the state of it, and then decide, okay, I want to here's the commands that I need to do to alter it to what I want. The problem is when you're running a lot of migrations, sequencing becomes difficult. You might have 3 migrations pending, and each of them work against the current state of the database. But when you apply one, the second and the third one are no longer valid, and it may actually have adverse side effects in kind of result in dropping some data, a column, or doing something that you didn't expect. And then for us, again, since we're delivering software into third-party, enterprise customer-controlled environments, we have very little ability to guarantee the current state of the database. And so all we wanted to say is, here's the state that I want the database to be at, kind of like Kubernetes, right? It's very declarative. SchemaHero is, and we can just say, I don't care what the state of the database is right now. Here's the state that I want the database at. Do whatever's necessary to move it from A to B.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that got me really excited about it when I was looking at the documentation. My database history is starting off 25 years ago, hand-rolled SQL that was deployed whenever we shipped the application, with probably many more manual changes, which I think is just the way things were back then. At least I don't think I was doing anything too bad. But then came along ORMs, and they gave us this ability to kind of model or code our databases as code, and then it would generate the migrations for us, and then those would run and deploy. And that worked really well, but then you run into problems with rollbacks, which I think rollbacks are still always a problem, right? Probably just shouldn't roll back. I'll get your thoughts on that if you want to share. But it's nice to see that go back to what I was trying to make a point of. When I looked at the SchemaHero documentation, there were no SQL statements. It was, like you said, a declarative. Here's what my database has to look like. Here are the fields that I want. Here are the types that they have. And I don't need to worry about anything else. Like, that's a pretty cool feature. And
yeah, like I mean, if you're used to Rails or Django, like you mentioned ORMs, and like that pattern was really really good, right? You don't have like it came with challenges around rollbacks and a few different things, but these challenges are going to exist. It's a complex subject. The challenge really though was Django or Rails, like the migrations are pretty tightly coupled into the ecosystem and the language and the framework that you're actually using to build stuff. And not all languages, not all ecosystems have that. Go has Go ORM. It's generally more around not writing SQL statements at runtime, but like that functionality just should exist, and it should be decoupled from, like we thought that functionality should exist and be decoupled from the actual like language and framework that you're using, and actually pushed down to the platform layer to be responsible for it, kind of like what Kubernetes has done.
Yeah, I kind of want to highlight one distinction to make sure I have my own mental models. This kind of makes sense, right? So for anyone who's not familiar how the ORM migration stuff worked, when it generated the SQL, every migration got an ID, and that was usually stored in the database to say that migration had run. So typically that migration would never run again. And if you make manual changes, any subsequent migrations that have to run wouldn't be aware of those changes, and it would break, and then you'd get paged, and then you're in a whole lot of hurt for a few days while you work out why there was a manual change in the database. What I got from looking at the documentation and even just talking to you now, it sounds like SchemaHero doesn't have any stored state. It's looking at the database as it runs to work out if there have been manual changes. Would it then fix that for me? Is that?
Yeah, like so, like we build that in as like drift detection, right? As the feature is what we're calling it. And then exactly, like it doesn't, if you've deployed and said, here's the state that I want this table to be at, and then somebody's gone and manually changed a column type, and then the next time you try to deploy that table, it's going to detect that, and it's going to say that table, like my job isn't to add this column to the table, or my job isn't to add this foreign key. My job is to make the actual table in Postgres or Cassandra or Cockroach, whatever that is, match the desired state that's defined in this YAML file. And so it ends up doing like drift detection and bringing it back to the desired state as needed.
Awesome. Well, it sounds exciting. I think we should just dive right in. What did you think?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
All right. Let's start off with what I've done in advance. And the answer is standard, almost nothing. So we do have a Kubernetes cluster. This is running on Civo. It's K3s running Kubernetes 120. I have no SchemaHero installed, but I did go ahead and deploy Postgres and MariaDB, because I'm assuming we'll be working with both of those today. These are empty. They have no configuration. They have no data, nothing like that. So we're starting from almost zero. And I have the SchemaHero website here and my expert. So I feel that we have everything that we need to be successful now. No pressure.
No pressure.
It's funny, like when people join me on this show, the thing they're not worried about is like their own competence or their knowledge. It's always I really hope our docs are up to date.
Oh yeah, I hope they are.
Documentation is always just one of those really challenging things. So, all right, let's click on get started. So I'm assuming the first thing we need to do is just get this thing installed.
Yeah.
So I see
there's two choices.
Yeah, go for it.
I was going to tell you, there's two choices here. This is like the documentation on how to install SchemaHero. On the top nav bar, there's also a tutorial. Like whatever way you want to go with, like it's under Learn SchemaHero, one tab to the left. Whichever path you want to take. One just like this path still leaves you with SchemaHero installed. It's a little bit more like walk you through every single thing.
Well, yeah, I probably need all the help I can get. So let's use the start this tutorial, because it says new to SchemaHero, and I certainly am. So.
All right.
All right, so we're getting some introduction. It's even given us a little basic database that we can design. So reservations, schedules, and airports. And I'm sure someone has spent a lot of time putting this all together, but I'm going to skip on to the install step of the tutorial.
Let's do it.
All right, so it says, so do we need something local and something on the server? I see that this is installing a plugin. Do you want to kind of just break that down for us?
Yeah, so SchemaHero, it's packaged the way I think that we're going to go through it today. It's packaged as a Kubernetes operator. It doesn't actually have to run in Kubernetes. It's just a CLI command, and you can run it completely outside of Kubernetes, as long as it can talk to the database. But like we're going to go through it, and we think the primary and kind of the best use case is really like running it as a Kubernetes operator. So we have a Helm chart. We have other community supported ways to install it. The preferred way for us is to grab our kube control plugin using Crew that we publish called SchemaHero. If you have Crew installed, if not, we can get that too. The ability is like that will actually manage installing the operator for you, and also kind of give you kube control SchemaHero CLI commands so that you can interact exactly with like the SchemaHero extension inside the cluster.
I normally have Crew installed, but I did switch to my M1 Mac recently, so we'll need to quickly grab this. Oh, that looks fun.
Yeah.
Am I supposed to trust this?
seven lines of shell scripting here. Let's do it.
I'm looking for the safe option.
Yeah.
All right, let's do that. Although Homebrew can be notoriously slow, but hopefully it's not too bad. I do love that they store all the binaries and GitHub Container Registry now is OCI artifacts. It's really clever.
Yeah.
There we go.
Great.
All right, so installed.
So that just installed the client side portion. Obviously, that hasn't like talked to the cluster at all.
Hey, yeah, it's now telling me to run the kube control SchemaHero install. So I'm assuming this is what's going to go ahead and install the operator to our cluster.
Exactly. I think when you installed Brew, you have to like add some path to the shell in order to do it. I've never installed Brew.
Am I making this more difficult for myself? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, when you go, so like if you maybe, yeah, exactly. Like this binary exists somewhere now, right? Like I don't know where it is on your path.
Neither do I. That's great. Okay, let's see. Do we have a crew directory? We do, and we got a bin. So there we go. So we are going to do export path crew bin, and then we're going to run that again.
That looks better.
It was pretty fast. Does it get its own namespace? It does. Okay.
It does. Yeah.
So I want to elaborate on something that you said there then. So let's close that. You said that SchemaHero doesn't have to run in cluster. So with the use case, in fact, you said I could also just run kube control schema. It's got a whole bunch of things on it.
Exactly. Yeah. Like you can, we'll dive into it here. And so like in kind of getting into how SchemaHero works, but like you can see there's a couple commands there, plan and apply. Those are probably the big important ones. And like, so you can say, here's a manifest and I want you to plan it against this database and give it a URI and run it. And we run it that way in Kubernetes at times when we're in controlled environments that like we can't deploy an operator because we can't get cluster RBAC level permissions. And so we can still run it. It's less automated at the end of the day. You still get the benefits of SchemaHero, but like it doesn't, like some of the ongoing, like the benefits of an operator is you have that reconcile loop that's running continuously in the cluster and you lose that.
Yeah. I'm assuming for people that aren't doing local development against Kubernetes, this is the best way as well for them. Like if they're just doing Docker Compose to run their services, but they still want to manage and use SchemaHero for the local dev environment, they could just do the SchemaHero plan, apply kind of logic themselves.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly. And like another use of it, it's not built into the operator, is we have a generate command, which you can use like against an existing database. And you can just say, like one of the things that we've done is at SchemaHero is we've said, oh, here's a declarative structure, their Kubernetes manifests, and this defines the table. Well, if you have an existing database, that can be a little bit tricky to migrate over if you have, hundreds of tables and it's complex. And so SchemaHero generate will actually like connect to the database, describe the schema, and then spit it all out for you. So you have a starting point and you can actually migrate to SchemaHero.
Oh, nice. We'll definitely have to try that then before we finish.
All
Is
right.
that part of our tutorial?
It's not, but like, let's try it.
All right. Do you want to do that first, or do you want to go stick to this tutorial first?
Let's go through the tutorial here.
All right. Okay. Wise decision. So we have SchemaHero available locally. We have that available inside of our cluster, and now we need to connect our database. So what databases does SchemaHero support?
So we support Postgres, MySQL, Cassandra, CockroachDB, and SQLite. I think we're working on adding support for Yugabyte right now. The goal is like, common databases, and we want to continue to expand that.
Cool. Awesome.
So I don't know if you already have Postgres running, David, like we might want to skip some of these parts here. And
yeah, so I actually have a port forward to both Postgres and MariaDB running on another terminal on my machine. So,
no, great.
Oh, this is the app I'm using. I didn't realize that this was in the documentation, this Beekeeper app. So that's obviously quite a good choice. I picked it for completely silly reasons. I thought it looked nice. And it's the only reason when I search for Postgres clients that I picked Beekeeper. But I'm glad that this has validated something for me now. So I'm quite happy.
That's why we picked it and put it in the docs too, because it just looked better than most of the other ones.
Yeah. I was playing like there's VS Code plugins now where you can just like open empty text files and write SQL and then say execute and stuff. But I felt that was a bit hardcore for this stream. I like nice visual things. Okay, sorry, digressing there. I'm going to copy our manifest here, which is going to create a database on our database. I guess we should just have a code session too, right?
Yeah, we're going to write some YAML.
Love me some YAML. Oh, I've lost my mouse. There we go. All right, so database one.yaml. So pretty standard Kubernetes looking manifest here. It's okay. So the URI is coming from a secret with a key. I mean, can I hard code that?
Yeah, you can. If we look at the docs, we can see exactly how. So let's head over to the documentation tab instead of the tutorial tab.
I was hoping for a duplicate action there, but I'll just do it manually. There we go. All right. Docs.
And then it's like connecting databases. So actually, that's another example. There you go. The reference for all fields. There we go. So
all right, value. Okay.
Yeah. Obviously, in production, like you don't want to hard code.
Yeah, it's just because I have no idea about the config maps or secrets available in this cluster. This was a Civil Marketplace installs the database. I took no ownership of it whatsoever. So I'm just going to provide the service name, which is going to be PostgreSQL.default.svc.cluster.local. And I'll assume we're going to just put the port on that.
I think it needs to be there's like a PostgreSQL. Yeah, exactly. And then you can throw if you don't need a username and a password, do you need a username and a password to connect? How is it deployed?
Yeah, we will need a username and password. Okay. So I'll just put them in the URI then. So. Sorry, it's not a publicly available Postgres. No. One hopes. Yeah, cluster IP, safe. What could go wrong?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so I need to describe my Postgres config map, which has all of my stuff. I wanted to get DB password. User. This is so terribly secure.
Some random
don't judge me too much. that might be enough. I don't think we need to put the DB name in or anything because we're creating a database. So I think what we have here should be enough for it to work.
The database already exists in it. So one thing SchemaHero today doesn't do is create the database for you. It assumes that you've provisioned a date. We have a feature request on that, but like you have to,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Okay. So I think the database just goes on the end.
Yeah.
That is part of this blurb PostgreSDB. All right.
Say it's impressive that you can write a Postgres connection URI off the top of your head. That's
well, it's not
maybe
worked.
you have.
It's not worked yet,
Yeah.
right?
Fair enough.
All right. Are we feeling confident?
Let's do it. Oh, we got to change the name in the namespace up there. You probably want to name it something not airline DB. I don't know, but you can. Whatever you want.
Rawkode live. Why not? All right, let's try again. Okay, so I'm assuming I can just run get databases. Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm assuming if I run describe, we might get some events or...
we should, yeah. And no events there. But if we look at if you want to do like a get pods, what this actually did is created one controller pod, like the Rawkode Live controller 0.
Nice.
And that's the one that's going to be managing this database. And I know one of the things that's always tricky is debugging some of these systems. And so this is like where to go to watch logs. It'll spit out like the schema and like any kind of challenges or problems and errors it runs into here.
Okay. I mean, I'm assuming there's no error message, so the connection probably worked.
I think so. Yeah, this looks good. This is a positive result.
All right, let's jump back to our tutorial. I'm assuming we want to start creating some tables next. So
let's do it.
So to do a validate, we run get databases. Yeah, cool. All right, let's create our first table. I'm getting SQL flashbacks now.
Yeah.
I haven't written any SQL in so long, I've got to say.
Good. You shouldn't have to. It gets gone.
All right, so we could just modify. Oh no, we're creating a new object, so we've got a table now. Got it. Let's just keep it in the same file. Keep it simple for now. So
great.
We'll call it. I can call this table. I'm assuming. Well, this is the manifest name, right? So
yeah.
Let's call it project. I'll just use my own namespace. It's going to the database that I just created, which I called Rawkode Live. And the name, like if I omit this, does it use the manifest name or no?
It doesn't. That's a good idea. Yeah. Like we have them as separate fields, just so you know. Like we like underscores in table names, and Kubernetes doesn't like underscores in manifest names, and so we ended up like having some weirdness. And that's why they're two fields. But like I like the idea.
Okay, so we're gonna have a primary key. Which I'll just keep the airport schema just now. I mean, we can modify it and play with it and see what happens. But for right now, I think this is enough to test that we're on something that might be working.
Great.
You happy with that?
That looks good, yeah. And we can connect already to Beekeeper and see the schema and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, we should be able to. So I'm going to apply that. Get databases and tables. Looks good. I don't know what I'm looking for, but I think it looks good. And I'm going to
looks good.
Describe. We've got the schema.
So one thing you can do here is actually use the kubectl plugin that we have there, and you can do kubectl SchemaHero get tables or get migrations. I think we're going to dig into like the migrations part of it here. So,
okay. So pending 0, that sounds good.
Yeah. Well, it didn't. There's no migration, which is a little bit weird. I would have expected there to be a migration that it like needed to deploy this table. It may either still be running or some other problem. Like,
oh, now we got to fail to connect. Yeah. So my confidence with my Postgres URI.
Looks like failed to split host port. Oh, there's like a / missing. I think it looks like I look at username, password, and then a URI just shows right up there.
Oh yeah. Oh, silly. be an at, right?
Yeah, exactly. There you go. And that sign's better.
All right, let's just keep those logs coming. Actually,
We may have to delete that pod and let the controller. I don't know if that pod's going to automatically reconcile. That may be a bug.
So if we run get migrations, all right, okay, let's delete the pod.
Yeah. This is what reconcile loops are supposed to do, though, for you, right?
Exactly. So we'll let that go away. We'll let it come back, and it'll be fixed. All right, let's get our logs again. No errors is good.
No errors is good.
So with tables and migrations planned. Oh, we have a migration. Hey.
Yeah. So yeah. If you actually run this with kubectl SchemaHero get migrations, we spit the output a little bit differently. So we'll kind of like they're both valid. You see the same names. Like I think that we need to change the way that we're doing this a little bit in the project, but
I can't do that. Okay.
No, I don't think we did that. So.
Okay, so we've got one pending migration. We've got a migration that has been planned for 50 seconds. So what's happening here? Can you fill me in?
Yeah, so you do it 50 seconds ago, it saw that there was, a table YAML that was deployed, and it realized that there's something like it doesn't match the actual running schema in your database, which I think is your current schema has nothing in it, and this is a plan to like create a table. So it generated the necessary DDL, like the SQL statements that were going to be either create table or alter table or whatever, and it stores them in this migration CRD. And then, like by default, SchemaHero expects that there's some workflow here where you can actually decide, I want to look at this. So you could control SchemaHero describe migration and pass that ID in. And it gives you the ability to like check it and say, yeah, that's actually the SQL that I want. You can turn that off and let it auto deploy. You can see the generated DDL statement there is create table projects.
All right. So it's already given me the command, so I can do approve migration and drop the ID in, and that's going to execute the migration, and we'll get the table. Okay. Yep. What does a recalculate do? Does that just tell it to go build it again?
Yeah. So in that migration we store that create table statement. That way we calculated it one time and now we store it. So recalculate will basically it's supposed to erase that and tell it like go look at the database again and see if that's still the same command or what you need to do.
Okay, so if I was modifying it manually at that point in time, I might want to ask it to go back and recalculate.
Exactly.
What happens if I reject it?
Nothing other than it puts a timestamp that says you rejected it at this time. Like that's all it does right now.
All right, okay. Let's not reject it. Let's approve. And run. No, we wanted to do our table, right?
Yeah, either get migrations or get tables. So there's 0 pending now.
Okay, executed, approved, no rejection. Is this where we open Beekeeper and
yeah? Let's do it. Let's make sure the table actually like SchemaHero did what it's supposed to do here.
All right, we got our projects. Cool.
No data in it, but
yeah, how to add data? I've not got that far with Beekeeper yet. View data.
Oh, view, yeah, or view structure maybe too. You can actually, yeah.
I don't know how to. I should start playing with this. Oh, there we go. All right, code. I'm in Glasgow. There we go. We have our first airport. Cool.
Great.
I just wanted to put in like one row so that we can maybe migrate the data and we'll actually see that we don't lose any data. I think that's important.
I think I'm not a Beekeeper expert here either, but I suspect you got to click that apply button at the bottom there.
Yeah, that should be a bright color. Come on, Beekeeper.
Yeah,
There we
I
go.
agree.
And select star from. Oh, autocomplete too. Sweet. Okay, there we go. So we're confident that SchemaHero did its job. That's pretty cool. Back to this tutorial.
No, let's go. I think like the next step in the tutorial was just like go modify the table. So like if whatever, let's go modify stuff.
So yeah, let's just wing it. Okay, so
yeah,
everything happens in our database CRD and our table. Well, mostly our table CRD, but we have this database one, custom resource. So let's, because this is declarative, I can just do whatever I want, right? Within reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So I've decided this is going multilingual. So we'll do English name. Now, what I'm curious about this specific scenario is there's nothing really to tie this to being formally named. So does SchemaHero look at the previous schema and understand that this is a rename because the type is the same? Does it think it's the new column and drop the old column? Or do I have to add anything to tie this to what was the column formerly known as name? Like,
yeah. You jump to the hard declarative schema migration problems here. It's unfortunately the second right now where it's going to see this as the table no longer has a column named name, and now it has a column named English name. So I think that SchemaHero is going to calculate this as drop column and add column. So you're going to lose that one piece of data. There's a issue in the repo to say like, prior names or like exactly where you went with that last option, like be able to list former names and then be able to rename columns. But today it's not in the product yet.
Okay, so it doesn't rename, so we would always leave the column names as is really and work with new columns. So
yeah, we can add columns, we can modify column types, constraints, keys, things like that for sure, but like or indexes, but not renaming columns yet.
Okay, cool. Let's add one more column then. Got a preference?
Let's go. What else do airports have? Like number of runways or something like that.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, runways. That'll do. Type and is it number and is there any abstractions? Or am I working directly with the Postgres types here?
Just Postgres types here. So like int, big int or whatever Postgres types are.
Okay. And can I set like a default value or anything like this?
Yeah, you can. We may have to look at the docs off the top of my head on that one, but like you can set a default value.
Yeah, we've got the reference open here, right? So if we click on table, okay, so we can do foreign keys. We've got our indices, columns. We can set a not null. I don't even know if Postgres does have default values, to be fair. I was just thinking.
No, we use that in MySQL quite a bit. I'm curious if we Good question.
Okay, so we got. Let's just do a not null.
All right.
So that's constraints not null on the column. In fact, we got it here.
So this will be a good one because it's going to show you that you already have a piece of data, you already have one row in there, and adding a new column with a not null and not a default, like Postgres is not going to, it's not going to be happy with that alter table statement, right?
Yeah, good point. I hadn't thought of that, but that's cool. So let's break it.
Let's break it.
Let's do an apply. And then if I run SchemaHero get migrations, we've got a new planned one, and I can describe the ID. So this wants to do alter table projects, add column runways, integer, not null. That's kind of what I expect. So do we approve this?
Let's approve it.
And so I'm assuming that's never going to be executed because of the constraint. Is that what's happening?
Right, it never successfully executes. And so I think if you look at the logs of that controller pod again, you'll see the actual error here.
Yeah, okay. So it's got null values because the data doesn't exist.
So I think we do.
No,
So I was going to say, I think we do support the default field here as a string. So like if you want to take this one step farther, let's actually go and add default at the same YAML level as type.
So the reference doesn't have it, but my autocomplete, which is querying against the cluster, does pick it up.
Interesting. I think you have to. I think it's a string type, and then we'll cast it in like yeah.
What else we got? Attributes. What's that? Oh, okay, we don't need. Well, that would be silly, but yeah, we could. Cool. Let's try that again. So we approved that migration, and now we're going to generate a new migration. Is that going? Like, what's the workflow here? Do I have to now reject the old one in order for this to work?
When it's the same table, what SchemaHero is going to do is it doesn't allow you to have these like stair-stepped migrations that are in flight. So it's going to say like, you have a migration for this table. Now, when you deploy this new YAML, it's going to calculate a new migration for this table. So it'll replace the one that's sitting there failing right now.
Will it take away the approved state and then need reapproved?
It will, yeah. It'll be just back to like 2 migrations, one's unapproved.
All right, that sounds good to me. There we go. Planned, not approved. Oh no, that's the third one.
It may be a recent change that we keep it there, showing you for audit purposes, but yeah.
All right, so alter table projects add column runway is not L default 0.
As you can see that this one calculated that against the current state of the database, not against the current state plus the pending migration here, right?
Yeah, it wasn't altering the column. It was adding. It's still adding a new column. So, okay, let's approve this one then. And then get executed and approved. Sweet. So if we go to Beekeeper or we run this query, yeah, we get runway 0. Cool, that worked.
Hey.
It's good when things work, right?
Yes.
Let's refresh. Okay. I'm going to keep trying to break stuff. Are you comfortable with that?
Let's do it.
All right. I'm going to modify the schema myself. So if I can work out how to do that. In fact, I'm going to cheat. Where was the alter statement? I don't know how to add columns with Beekeeper, but we do have this query window, so I'm just going to use it. So let's add a column called never, like so. Now, in my head, what I expect to happen here is for SchemaHero to detect this and generate a new migration to remove it. Is that what you think is going to happen?
Very, very, very close. That's what it should happen. The only thing you have to do today is SchemaHero has that table as in sync, and we don't continuously reconcile and put a load on the database querying it. Like there's a thing that we want to figure out how to like do that drift detection in large databases without like overloading the database, hitting the schema up constantly. So today there's like, you could either deploy any other change to the table, or if you like delete table -all, and then just redeploy that table, exactly what you said will happen. There's no trigger in the reconcile loop to tell it to go recalculate that right now.
Okay. So our best way forward would be just to modify, assume that all airports have at least one runway.
Sure. It's not an airport otherwise. Or, yeah.
Apply. Okay, so yeah, I want to make sure I understand. So SchemaHero does do reconciliation, but if it believes your database is in sync, it doesn't want to add the burden of extra load querying that. So
yeah. Okay. One thing that we do, and we can dig into this a little bit later, is like we use GitOps inside our production environment that's constantly syncing YAML into the cluster. So when we run into this problem, we'll just delete like a table YAML. SchemaHero, by the way, just like it won't, it's designed to be relatively safe. Like if you delete this table YAML, it's not going to go drop the table from the database. Like it's going to leave it there and think that's now an unmanaged table. There's a is deleted field that you can set in the YAML, which will actually tell SchemaHero, I want you to actively go delete this table. So like one trick that we do to kind of poke SchemaHero when we need to is just delete the table YAML, let Flux redeploy it, and then it recalculates it.
Okay, cool. Let's approve this one. And refresh here impatiently.
Let's do it.
No, doesn't have to be very impatient. Okay, perfect. Yeah, it's working. It's doing everything that I kind of want it to do. So I'm pretty happy with that. Now I'm going to do the thing that you said, which is it here?
Yeah.
And that's just a Boolean. So if this manifest is deleted, it will delete the table.
Exactly. Yeah. So you can probably get rid. I mean, you can leave the rest of the data there too, but it's not going to be that important.
Oh, right. Okay, I understand you. So when I apply this, it will delete the table. It's not an indicator that if the manifest disappears, to delete. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Which we erred on a like really like side of caution that like you need to say very declaratively, I want this table deleted, not like the absence of a YAML means we should delete this table. That felt a little too risky for what we wanted to do with an early project.
Yeah, working with databases, I guess you've always got to err on the side of caution, right? The last thing you want is people complaining that things disappeared. Let's try. Oh, I'm going to have to approve the migration, right?
Yeah. So there is an immediate deploy flag on the database that you can set, and then when you have that set, SchemaHero doesn't wait for you to immediately or for you to approve them. It just automatically moves them into the approved phase.
Okay, let's approve this one first, and then let's try that.
Right.
So I've lost the number. There we go. Beekeeper. All right, definitely gone. Okay. So I've now realized that was a terrible, terrible mistake. I'm going to do this. Okay, so where do I set the we don't need approval thing? Is that on the database or on the table?
It's on the database. I believe it's right under your autocomplete will help here. I believe it's right underneath Postgres. Should be immediate deploy. Oh, maybe up under connection. Or we may need to look at docs.
Oh, it's database, right? So let's pop over here. Oh yeah, immediate. Oh, it's on the spec. Okay. Yeah, what's the enable shell command?
So if you have a database, SchemaHero can talk to your database, obviously. Interestingly, to your point, you have this port forward set up in order to connect through to the cluster IP service. The shell command basically will allow you to kube control SchemaHero shell database name, and it'll create a pod running PostgreSQL and exec you into that to connect to the local database so that you can actually get into a database that you don't have a direct route to.
Oh, nice. I'm going to try that too.
All right.
All right. On spec. I don't know why we're not getting the autocomplete. Oh, no. Oh.
I think we never went high enough on it.
I'm sure I did. I'm going to rewatch this later and be like, I'm determined to prove VS Code wrong. Okay. I'm sorry, VS Code. It was me. Okay, so this is going to get us our shell command and our immediate deploy, so we can start adding columns, and we should just see that instant. So I'm going to reapply. Do I need to restart the controller for that change?
It's a great question. I'm wondering that myself right now. So let's see if it deletes, if it does it by itself. It should do it by itself. The right behavior of SchemaHero would be to do it by itself.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, it did. Great.
Yes, we have the thing. Okay.
So when you look at migrations, you'll still see, by the way, that like it still goes through the same phase. It's just that it auto approves it for you because you still have an audit log of exactly when it was approved and executed.
All right. Well, let's add. Funny joke. I don't know. I have too much pressure. Okay. So apply Beekeeper. Funny joke. Okay. That's pretty cool to see that instantaneous kind of reconciliation when I make the changes here.
Yeah.
I guess that's confidence mode, right?
Exactly. We, completely transparently, we have that enabled for pre-prod environments, for QA test environments and dev environments, but we actually still don't do that for our own production environment. We still have a thing where we're like, a human should not write the SQL statement, but like look at it and decide it's okay to run.
Is this something where there's, or do you see tooling like this eventually coming where when the migration gets created, it's posted to Slack and someone can just approve it? I don't know if I'd want Slack ClickUps quite there, but at least a notification to say this pending migration, this is what it looks like. And is that tooling that you're using yourselves, or is it very much just kube control all the time?
Yeah. Right now we're still doing kube control all the time, like that. Like finding that right workflow. So it's like, is it chat ops? Is it like in Slack? Is it like, how do you do it? It's a great question, actually. Like I don't think that running kube control approved migration is the right path, honestly. Like it's like, it gives you the workflow and the check that you need in place, but like, they're honestly like it's like, working with large enterprises, they have like change management systems, and like you should have like an audited event of like who approved that thing into large migrations, because like it can have negative effects, and you just want to know who's looking. You want to make sure some human is looking at them really at the end of the day.
Okay, let's do one more thing, and then we'll move over to your demo. Does that sound good?
Sounds great.
I'm gonna do a delete on this because I want to do it without the operator.
All right.
So, it's in a namespace, right? So schema, yeah. I'm assuming this is deployment. No, it was STS, right? Because it was named that way. STS SchemaHero. So we now have no more operator or controller running for this. And you said that,
right.
So I want to think about the local dev thing. When I meet teams and people, they're not always deploying to Kubernetes. They are for production, but when it comes to dev, they're still using local services or Docker Compose and some other tooling like that. So I'm curious if I have my application, I've got this op directory with the SchemaHero, I've got the exact same YAML here that I've shipped to prod. What's my process to get that working with just the SchemaHero command?
Yeah. So there's like one page in the docs that show it. Let's go through it and we'll figure it out here. I don't like the CLI command syntax exactly off the top of my head. Under documentation, under advanced, there's a page called operatorless mode is what we call it right now. And this starts to show you how you can, this shows it running as a job in Kubernetes, which is probably, like looking at this now thinking that's probably not the right syntax to give you like the operatorless mode in, because we designed this really being like, I want to run this in Kubernetes, but I don't have cluster admin permissions. But you can actually see that it's running, the job. We may have to like reverse engineer this a little bit to say like, okay, it's running SchemaHero plan, and then it's passing in a couple of args to it,
Yeah, I'm sure we can work this out. So
yeah.
Okay, SchemaHero. Let's try that plan first. And does it still take out the YAML as spec file and spec type, right? So let's try spec file.
And you don't have to deploy a database type here. Like, because what you can do is just pass in driver in URI right on the CLI. So you can pass in driver equals Postgres, and then URI equals that connection string, and then just the plan to the YAML, and it should plan it for you.
Oh, so it's not parsing the custom resources in the YAML to pull out the database information and then the table.
It parses the custom resource in the table, but you basically you deconstruct the database part and give it as CLI flags at this point.
All right. URI. Let's copy that. And spec file.
Yeah. So a couple things I think are causing the problem. One is like your machine, I don't think can access, like localhost 5432 is going to be a problem here. Oh no, do you still have the port forward open? So it actually could probably do that.
Yep, they're still running because that's what Beekeeper's using right now. So
let's drop the table, like, because it might just be that there's no differences detected or something like that.
Oh yeah, I didn't delete the. Right, okay. Drop table project. Done.
Oh, there's like a out param. I maybe
I should read the docs, shouldn't I?
Yeah. Let's just.
All right. So, it takes environment variables. Okay. So this seems to be potentially a directory, and there's a SchemaHero out, which will create. So it's going to create migration YAMLs. Okay. So I think we're close.
Yeah.
What am I missing? So I think it's maybe looking for a directory. So I'm going to do spec file equals dot and maybe out migrations. No, not quite. I still got my database file. Yeah. Okay. We're close.
Oh, let's like, I'm kind of guessing a little bit here. We're like, but can we comment out, or like, let's make that database one YAML only have table specs and not a database spec in it.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So migration. Well, that seems promising.
Yeah. All right. So it's trying to unmarshal something and failing. So
I think
it did work. Oh, because dot contained other files. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm confusing it. So let's do out equals migrations.
You should also, I think spec file can take a directory or a file. Like you can, I think that we can support both there. I think there's just a dot at the end of it.
Oh. All right. Oh, that's a fail. Oh, but we did get the migration. Okay. So based on that, I'm assuming I put plan all the way back here. Apply. Help.
Yeah.
And this is going to take
/dd or --ddl is, I guess, the parameter name here.
DDL equals migration. Oh, hey. There, we did it.
Wow. And you never wrote SQL.
Okay, that's cool. So yeah, we can, without Kubernetes local development environments, we can point it to a file or a directory containing our table definition. So we'd probably keep our databases separately. In fact, yeah, my local repository for my application code is never going to contain that database CID anyway. That's going to be always come from platform and ops team. So the table ones just living there actually probably makes a bit of sense. And then we can do the plan and apply. We get the migrations, and it worked. Cool. Right. I'm happy with that.
Great.
We're going to move to your demo now. We have a question from Rio in the chat, which I'll throw over to you. So Rio asks, is there a way to set the name of the migration beforehand? This could enable CI systems to block deployments of specific software until SchemaHero shows a migration has been executed.
It's a good question. So today, like those IDs that were like the name of the migrations, they're actually deterministically calculated by the generated SQL statement that is being created. And one of the benefits of that is like if you have to recalculate them or whatever, like the ID won't change. You end up with like a history, you know, like every time I deploy the same migration from the same state, I get this ID. So today, like no, that's unfortunately that's not possible. And it's an interesting thing to think about. But today they're all calculated deterministically.
I guess you could have an init container though that looked up all migrations and made sure they were all up to date before deploying software. I mean, if that was part of your workflow, but yeah, maybe something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually, you know, we have a mono repo that has the database migrations and, you know, our code in it. And so when you know we deploy a change that involves, you know, code changes and a schema change, it becomes a little bit like tricky, and you have to be careful if we don't have immediate deploy to true, because if that gets deployed all the way, you might have code that expects a column to exist and you haven't approved that migration yet. We like have decided to handle this by saying, you know, don't write code that is hard dependent on that column to be there. Like you can handle that by writing code a little bit differently. That's not like, we don't want to tell you to change the way you write code. So that's a overall problem if you're handling, you know, mono repo that handles code and migrations though. Like it's a challenge.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Do you want to share your screen and we'll take a look at what you've got to show?
Sure. I'll share here.
All right.
So great. So what I have is, all right. So I have a Kubernetes cluster just running on DigitalOcean and a managed separate out of the cluster MySQL server right here. And the MySQL server is only available inside the cluster. It's set up, you know, similar to the cluster IP, obviously, but it's like a VPC firewall rule that's making it so it's not publicly accessible. Because that's how people run production systems, hopefully. And also in case I accidentally show a password here on the screen, I'm not super worried. And like I did a little bit more prep on this one, and I have Flux running. So I have Flux running in a GitOps deploy pipeline. So I can just write code, commit it, GitHub Actions runs, and then it gets automatically deployed. And the thing that I wanted to show was a couple of things here. We've been playing around a lot lately with a new version of SchemaHero. Oops, sorry about that. And so this is like the alpha version of 0.13.0, which is currently in progress. We hope to ship this in mid-February. And there's a really cool feature in it. And my goal was to show that. So I'm going to basically go through the same demo. We'll go pretty quickly. We're going to install the 0.13 operator, this cluster. And that's going to spin up the operator. And here I have like a semi potentially typical repo that has like a CI pipeline, more matches like how you actually would run stuff in production. This pipeline is, I mean, in order to make the CI process really quick for this, I don't have code in it. It's literally just customize running a bunch of like manifests. And I have sealed secrets installed so that I can actually deploy secrets through a GitOps pipeline. Here I have a database YAML, and the database YAML, I have the same commands that we just looked at, immediate deploy and enable shell command, and this deploy seed data set to true, which is one of the cool new features of 0.13 that I wanted to show off. In my production overlay for customize, and sorry, I'm throwing a lot here, like around GitOps and Flux and customize and everything. Like I think that, you know, just trying to like demo a more like, you know, realistic end production environment. So I have a sealed secret that contains my connection string for MySQL.
Yep.
And the sealed secret's Helm repository. And so what I'm going to do is deploy all of this. I have a schemas, and the schema has the same, basic table. I'm actually going to comment that part out for now. And so this is the same basic table here. It's called airport this time, but it has the code and the airport name. And the customization here only has the airport YAML. So really quickly, I need to make the window smaller so I can see the terminal prompt. So if I look at like customize build, customize overlays production, and we look at see what that actually is creating, we just have a sealed secret here. We have our database object, which we're familiar with. We just went through it. And then I don't have a table because I probably forgot to save a file somewhere or something like that. Let's try that one more time. I have a table in here. So base, database, customization. Oh yeah, here. I need to include the schemas. Sorry. All right. So here. Now I have this airline DB table, or the airport table, being deployed. So we'll just push that to GitHub. This is the repo that I pushed it to. And a GitHub action is going to run, which is going to basically go, run unit tests, run all the tests that normally run in CI. For this one, it's really quick. It takes about 30 to 40 seconds to run all the way through CI. And then we'll render out that customization YAML and put it into a separate repo that Flux is watching. We wait while that works. I can kube control get tables, and I don't have anything. There's nothing deployed. So we'll have Flux do like a reconciliation while this continues to run. It's red, but I don't think that it's actually an error. This is just what happens. And this should run pretty quickly, customize build, and then upload all the rendered out YAML.
Where does it upload the render? Oh, to another repository?
Yeah, so it's right now it's going to this other repository that I just created called GitOps demo. And it's going to deploy it right now. You see it here. It just deployed this. And so 10 seconds ago. So Flux is going to watch this and pick that up. So we'll try to push Flux along and not have it sit idle. If I look at tables, it's there. I can run the same commands that we were just looking at, SchemaHero, get migrations, and this is approved, it's there. So this is because we have immediate deploy set to true. The thing that I want to show here is a couple of things. So kube control, SchemaHero, get databases. Our database is named airline DB. So I can run kube control SchemaHero shell that. And that's going to run a MySQL pod on that cluster and give me a connection and do it.
That's cool.
So now, so I can show tables. I have the airport table, select star from airport. And sorry, I don't have Beekeeper set up with port forward here, so this is a little bit harder. The table's empty. So coming back here to the part that I wanted to show, which is the part that we're excited about, is we added this seed data where I added a couple airport codes, right? Like I have two rows in the database, JFK and LAX. I'm going to go ahead and add that. We'll push that up to the repo. We wait another minute while this action runs. And what it should do is the end result will be that the manifest with the seed data will end up over here in our GitOps repo. One thing to note while the CI runs is we set this that you have to opt into it for seed data, because one of the things we ran into, we deployed it, we were using it in our dev environments to do things like, deploy features and entitlements or feature toggles, entitlements, and a little bit of fixture data that you need to run tests. And it was super useful. And then right when we started to think, okay, let's merge this in and push it out to production, we were like, wait, we don't want all this data in production either. So we ended up having to like make that something that you can opt into and out of at the database level for now. So this should finish this CI here in a second.
So why, if you opted for this kind of two-step GitOps deployment where you push to another repository rather than having Flux just apply the YAML directly?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like, I think it's, let's call it muscle memory of the way that we've been using Flux. We adopted Flux with Flux 1.0 when it didn't have support for customize built into it. And so we ended up having to do these like kind of CI processes to do it. And like this like was easy for me to set up in order to do it. Like no other reason than that.
That's a good enough reason.
All right. So the seed data is now here. And if we come back here and we select star from airport, there's two rows of data in the database now. So it's not just schema. We're starting to get into the actual data. And
if you describe that migration, is that just going to be insert statements?
Well, almost. Let me get migrations. It is insert statements, but I think it's important to point out here that let me type and talk. I don't know how you do it. Describe migration. So it is just insert statements. But for MySQL, we do the on duplicate key update. And for Postgres, it'll say like insert ignore statements because like we know they're going to be regenerated all the time. And the idea is, primary key in this table is the code column. So as long as one of the primary keys is included in the seed data, which like likely is going to be anyway, or else it's not going to be a very valid piece of data, this works. That allows me to delete that row. And then the next time it's like drift detection, it'll put that seed data back, but it also makes sure that it's not duplicated each time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a really cool feature for, again, that development workflow as well. Like being able to do the plan and apply and get data that is, crafted alongside the schema itself makes a lot of sense. I think that's a really cool feature.
I'm going to stop sharing here, but like, yeah, that's exactly what we use it for. Our dev environments, we ended up with, like most folks, we have, a table full of features. And like, when we want to roll them out, like everybody has to run migrations to insert those features into their database for feature toggles, or like there's, generic fixture data that we use for, different types of tests. And to make sure that the tests are portable between environments, we can actually just throw the data into the seed data and not put it into production.
Yeah, I've got a feature request for you that you can bring for 0.14 now. Is that instead, when I have the seed data, being able to use the faker library and say like, this is the first name, this is an address, this is the second name, and have
that's good.
Generate 10 or 20 or 100 or 1,000 of them. That would be a really cool feature as well.
That's cool. So seed data would be less deterministic, but more just like let's just fill everybody's environment up with it, and like we're going to find some problems. And
if you want to do some property-based testing, or you want to do some load-based testing and really fill and hammer that thing up a little bit, it would be cool to be able to have seed data that is deterministic and then populate it with maybe a whole bunch of undeterministic stuff. So indeterministic.
I like it. I like it. We may have to go add that in. I like that idea.
Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with the Faker project, but it's just this really cool library for generating fake data with like types, and it understands what it is. It's very cool.
Yeah, no, it's great. Love it.
All right, well, that was awesome. Thank you so much for kind of working with us today and showing us that. That demo was cool. The seed data thing's great. That shell command was great. That would have saved me a whole bunch of setup with Beekeeper and stuff. But oh well, yeah. This is why we do these things, to show these features to people so they see how they work. We've got one question that popped in right at the end there that'll pop up from Rio. So everything until now has been connection based. How does it work with SQLite?
So I can. It basically works the same way. Like you can write a SQLite URI that just points to a file name, and then that'll point to a SQLite file. It's identical otherwise. David pointed out earlier, like he asked about the type, whether that's like an abstraction or just raw Postgres types. And you'll notice like in the database or in the table schema, there was a Postgres key, and the one that I did, there was a MySQL key. So like the schema can change. We don't try to like normalize and make sure the schema is identical between them all. We try to make them as similar as possible. But like SQLite works, you just pass in a SQLite connection string.
Yeah, SQLite is something that I was interested in. In fact, I actually planned for us to do a bit of a demo there, but I got carried away with the Postgres stuff. So I think I'm definitely going to be playing with SQLite sidecars with SchemaHero and having some fun there. So I'll be sure to get some tutorials or something onto the channel. But yeah, awesome. All right, any last words, Mark, before I let you go back to your day?
No, I think it's a sandbox project. Like if I can, like we've been in the sandbox for a year. I'd love, what we're really looking for is just folks who find use cases and like hit us up on the Kubernetes Slack. There's a SchemaHero channel, like things where it's working or not working. We want to, we have a goal of trying to get out of the sandbox and move it to an incubating project sometime this year. In order to do that, we need to have demonstrated use cases, and we know it's out there. People are using it. Love to, like, anything that we can do to help unblock or feature requests or anything like this. Just, we'd love to talk.
Awesome. All right, everyone, get involved if you like what you've seen. I'm sure Mark will be happy to answer questions on GitHub issues, Twitter, anywhere else that you're participating. Is there a Slack for this?
Yeah, it's in the Kubernetes Slack. Yep.
All right. Okay. So check out the channel in the Kubernetes Slack. All right. Well, thank you again, Mark. It was really good fun. I enjoyed that. I'm looking forward to playing with SchemaHero a little bit more. So thank you for your time today, and I'll speak to you again soon.
Thank you.